Shabbat Shalom. It has been said that the insurrection was the gravest, most threatening, and most dangerous of its time. Fueled by rage, indignation, and a deep sense of disenfranchisement, those who perpetrated this horrific act falsely portrayed themselves as fighters for freedom, fairness, and justice. But really, what these power-hungry rebels wanted most was vengeance and vindication for their shameful cause. As they railed against the elite in whose hands they saw all power consolidated, and as they condemned a leadership they saw as illegitimate and unworthy, these rebels demanded to be seen and heard and recognized. No doubt they caught the attention of the world, forever etching this mutinous assault on the hearts and minds of all who bore witness to its horror. I am speaking, of course, about the insurgency led by Korach and his followers, a rebellion which stands at the center of our Torah narrative this week in the portion named after the rebel himself, Korach. How uncanny it is when the Torah speaks so powerfully to the moment in which we live, a moment so defined by the insurrection at our capital and the January 6th hearings in Congress. But that is the way of Torah, reminding us that nothing is new under the sun and that our age-old tradition still lives vibrantly and powerfully in our own time. Korach is identified as a son of Kehat and a grandson of Levi, which makes him part of the second-tier priestly caste, below Kohanes or priests, and above the Israelites, the common class. But even though Korach enjoyed elevated status as a Levite, even though he was a member of a respected Levite family, he wanted more power, more status, more prestige. He disliked the fact that Aaron and Moses were in charge. He resented his place in Israelite society. And so he, along with 250 leaders within the Israelite community, he rises up against Moses and Aaron, publicly challenging their authority with open defiance and rage. To Moses, Korach says, "You have gone too far, for all the community are holy. Why then do you raise yourself above Adonai's congregation?" Upon first blush, Korach's question sounds legitimate, even just, but our text reveals a more complicated picture. The passage begins, "Vayikach Korach," and Korach took. Took what? There is no direct object name, so the phrase is unclear. Some say Korach took himself or Korach took men, but many commentators have translated it more liberally, thinking Vayikach Korach might be an expression like Korach challenged or Korach separated himself in dissension. Either way, these first two words, Vayikach Korach, set up Korach for conflict. He is not approaching Moses in peace. He is confronting him with a band of 250 angry men saying, "Rav lachem, you have too much." Or as Rashi interprets this, "You have taken more greatness upon you than is proper, than is appropriate." Korach is naming the disparity between them. Like Rabbi Randy Kavka notes, our rabbinic tradition is clear when it comes to Korach's criticism. It barely masks his own desire for importance and power. We see more evidence of this later when Moses responds to Korach saying, "Now you're trying to get the priesthood too? Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him?" This makes it obvious, notes Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, that Korach wanted to be a Kohen and probably wanted to be Kohen Gadol, the high priest, in place of Aaron. Korach wanted it all, and he was indignant. Korach's protest, however, does not end well. His tirade concludes with the earth swallowing him and his fellow dissidents whole, leaving behind a marred and hateful legacy for all to bear. Neither our Torah nor our commentators equivocate when it comes to Korach. He is arrogant, power-hungry, and egotistical, they say, the Machiavellian impulse personified. In fact, our tradition's overriding attitude towards Korach can be encapsulated by one of the most oft-quoted texts from our Mishnah, which states, "What exemplifies an argument l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven?" Well, the argument between Hillel and Shammai. What exemplifies an argument that is not for the sake of heaven? The argument of Korach and his company. Korach not only embodies the very worst of humanity, but he models the very worst kind of argument, one based not in respect or truth-seeking, but in degradation and power-grabbing. As Rabbi Mark Angel writes, Korach does not offer a positive agenda. Rather, he preys on the fears and frustrations of the public. Korach's rebellion is, at the end of the day, about winning and about gaining status and position at the cost of someone else losing such status and position. Korach has no interest in discussion or exchange. He seeks to triumph through intimidation, harassment, and hostility. Moreover, Korach doesn't want understanding or resolution. He wants victory. An argument like Korach's, based in ambition, greed, and teeming self-regard, is the very definition of an argument that is not for the sake of heaven. We don't have to look too far to see this kind of argument in our midst. We need only look at the paper or turn on the news to see such manifestations of Korach in our world, in our nation, in our capital. But as rampant as Korach's example is all around us, there too are models of the opposite. To quote Rabbi Angel once more, the Korach model of controversy is contrasted with the debates between Hillel and Shammai. These disputes were for the sake of heaven. Neither Hillel nor Shammai was seeking personal power or glory. Although they disagreed strongly on various issues, they were not opponents out to destroy each other, but were colleagues in search of truth. Arguments that are l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, are those that are conducted with dignity, with respect, with decency. They are those that are grounded in ethics and morality and integrity, and most of all, arguments l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, are those that prioritize the search for truth above all else. As we reflect on this week of unrelenting challenge from every sphere of life and every angle of society, a week that has been upended by shattering and shocking revelations about the January 6th insurrection. Let us remember that arguments l'shem shamayim, that is, arguments for the sake of heaven, they still exist. It is still possible to stand up for truth. It is still noble to strive for justice, and it is still righteous to act on behalf of others rather than acting only for ourselves. We heard the brave, clear, and bold testimony that proves each of these statements veritable and true. In this moment of bitter strife and discord, this moment marked by conflict seemingly everywhere we turn, we, all of us, have a responsibility to engage in the world around us, to raise our voices for what is right, what is moral, especially in light of our upcoming Independence Day, a holiday that honors our freedom to engage in the body politic, our freedom to dissent, our freedom to march and protest. In light of this national observance, let us remember to exercise those freedoms passionately, but always l'shem shamayim, always with integrity, always with decency, and always with the moral grounding of our tradition behind us. As we rise up, and surely we will rise up, let us do so in pursuit of justice, of righteousness, and now more urgently than ever, let us do so in pursuit of truth. Always the truth. Ken Yiratzon. Shabbat Shalom.